Hey guys, I want to make a little video, just kind of talking about guitar tone, stuff like that. I do get a lot of videos, especially over the last like year or so, asking like how I get my tone and just like what I do to get like an overall just a good guitar sound. And I mean, for one thing, um, what is a good sound to me might not be a good sound to you, or vice versa. I mean, but going about it is definitely the same way. And for the most part, it's really two main things. I mean, you got to have the right guitar and you got to have the right amp, because it's pretty much 50% one and 50% other. Because I mean, I got my Mesa Boogie, and if I had like a shitty guitar with like shitty pickups in it and just overall just not good, obviously it's not going to sound as good. So it's definitely finding the right balance of guitar and amp. And I spent a lot of time over the last year researching and just trying to figure things out about what I really look for a tone. I mean, I've over the past 11 years I've bought like close to 40 guitars, because I didn't really know exactly what it is that I liked, and I was always trying something new. And I mean, I've come to realize that there's really certain things that I do like and certain things that I really want to stay and keep using. So first off, I mean, we'll start with the guitar, and we'll talk about a few points with that. Obviously, I mean, there's 100,000 different types of guitars out there. And really, the type of guitar doesn't matter that much, because there's a lot of different parts of the guitar that have that play a factor in it. So first of all, the first thing I like to do is just find a guitar that feels comfortable to me. So like, probably the number one most comfortable guitar for me is the Strat. I just think it's very easy for me to play. It's I think it looks awesome, which is nice. I could play it for hours straight and it doesn't really have a problem, or it doesn't feel like it's just bulky or heavy. As much as I love the Les Paul, it's not as comfortable to play. The necks that are on it are really comfortable for me. There's so many different types of necks that beginners might not realize. There's flatter necks, there's wider necks, there's really thick necks, there's like super rounded ones. I mean, there's seriously a lot of different types. There's different scale lengths. So for instance, on any of my Fenders, they're going to be a 25.5-inch scale for the Fender guitars, and that basically means that I don't know what I was saying. Scale length, 25.5. That's like a normal Fender scale length, and it basically means like how long the neck is going to be. And most Gibsons, like my Les Paul, and I'm pretty sure the 335 is the same. Most Gibsons are going to be a little shorter than that, so you're going to have less neck to play with. So it's a little less easy to play, especially like solos and stuff. I mean, there's plenty of great players out there for that play Gibsons and stuff, but there's a little bit less playing room on a typical Gibson neck. Because it is a little shorter. So like, if you notice, like when you get up to the higher frets on a standard Strat or something, you're going to notice that you have a little bit more room for those little parts you're going to be playing. So that's another thing to look for, finding like what type of neck that you like. Where else was I going with this? So basically, you want to find a guitar that just feels comfortable to start off with. For some people, they love like a 335, like a semi-hollow type of guitar, and that's not the same for everybody. I mean, as cool as the 335 is that I have right there, it's really not comfortable for me to play. I don't really play it that often. And another thing, fret size plays a big a big deal. I mean, like the frets on that guitar, they're really low, they're really small compared to some of the ones on my other guitars that are a lot bigger. It's easier for me to bend. It's easier for me to do certain styles of playing. So, I mean, different type of frets suit a lot of different type of playing too. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors when it comes to that. So, after you find a guitar that just feels really comfortable, it's really nice to know what type of wood your guitar is made out of, because no matter what anybody says, a pickup is going to sound different depending on what kind of guitar it's in, and it's going to sound different depending on what type of wood it's made out of. Because if I had two Strats that were identical, except one was made out of maple, like completely maple, and one was made out of we'll say alder, what a lot of Strats are made out of. Maple is a lot brighter of a wood, and if you put a bright pickup into that maple, into the maple Strat, it's going to sound possibly overly bright, maybe too bright, and it's not really going to sound very balanced. But if you put it into the alder Strat, it should sound fine. So like if you had a maple guitar, typically you're going to want to get a pickup that's a little darker. Something that might have a little more bass, something like that to kind of even it out. Because I'll give you an example. When I bought my Juggernaut pickup from Bare Knuckle, I had it in the Les Paul first just to try it out, and that thing was a beast. I mean, it absolutely just screams no matter how I played it, and that was great. But it was bought for the orange Strat right there, and it definitely does not sound the same. It's a little more reserved. I mean, I definitely have to pick a little harder for like harmonics and stuff like that to come out, but I mean, that pickup is still, it's great, and it definitely suits that guitar really well, but it's definitely different than the way it acted in that guitar. And if I put it in like my 335, it's going to sound even more different, just because that's just how it is. So it's definitely good to know what type of woods your guitar is made out of, and even more so the necks. I mean, it does matter what the neck and the fretboard are made out of. Because if you get like a rosewood neck or rosewood fretboard, which most of my guitars are made out of, the only ones that aren't are the Telly, which is just an all maple neck, and then the Les Paul is mahogany with an ebony fretboard. And mahogany is usually a little darker sounding, but the ebony is a bit brighter sounding, closer to a maple. So I mean, it's more balanced. So I mean, it's really about finding a guitar that's really well balanced, or at least as balanced as you can get, for the most part. I mean, if you're gonna have like a really dark sounding guitar, I mean, you could always just put a bright pickup in it. So that's how you get a guitar to sound the way that technically it should sound, like nice and balanced, and really is just a good guitar to play. So choosing the right pickups, I mean, I've spent so much time trying to figure out what pickups fit best with what guitars, and figuring out that I like this sound more than that sound. I mean, a year ago, I could honestly say that the Seymour Duncan Invader was one of my favorite pickups, and now it's probably not even close to that. I've got a whole bunch of other types of pickups that I like more than that one. So I mean, your ears definitely change a bit the more that you pay attention to sounds and stuff like that. So next, strings and the type of picks that you use do matter. I've been using the same strings for pretty much like 10 years. I've been playing for 11 years, so pretty much the most of my guitar playing has been using Ernie Ball skinny top heavy bottoms, which is basically a thicker gauge on the lower strings, so I can play like some heavy riffs on it and it sounds like full. And then the other three strings are kept lighter, so you can do like fast little riffs a little easier. Bending is easier, stuff like that. So I mean, they have a lot of different types of gauge strings, and it's really important to to screw around with those and try and figure out what's best for you. So if you're gonna play like really low crunchy metal or something like that, you're gonna want something that is gonna be lower gauge. So I mean, you could do like something with the skinny top, heavy bottoms if you wanted to, or you could do, if you even wanted to, Ernie Ball. I mean, there's a ton of different string companies out there which are all great. But say you don't do a lot of type of soloing and stuff like that, you just want like big heavy chords and stuff like that, you could just get like a set that all of the strings are thicker. So I mean, that's another thing that's going to affect your sound. If you're going to be playing like heavy metal and stuff like that, you're not going to want like really light strings, because it's just going to sound, well, I mean, I'm sure some people might be able to make that work, but it's not going to sound the way that you'd expect it to sound. It's definitely going to affect it. And same thing with picks. I use more or less like a medium type gauge pick. Of course I dropped that one. I use a green Dunlop, which is a .88 thickness, but I mean, some people like really thick ones, some people like, that's what she said, some people like really thin picks, and like really thin picks are good if you like doing like a lot of like really fast strumming and stuff like that, but it's not going to sound like as hard as you're doing it. So I mean, there's definitely is something to figure out there for what pick that you really like to use. Another thing, another quick thing for guitar, pretty much the last thing I'm going to say for guitar, scale length does matter. There's a lot of people that wonder why their guitars, if they're like detuning a lot, if they're playing like B standard or like C standard, stuff like that, and they're wondering why like their strings just like are kind of floppy and it doesn't sound as good as say like some metal band playing the same type of thing. Baritone guitars are becoming like a pretty big thing. I mean, they've always been kind of big, but basically that means that the scale length is a lot bigger. So I mean, a lot of baritone guitars can get up to like a 27-inch scale or even longer, meaning basically the string has longer, the string is going to be longer, so it's easier to get up to that lower tension, because if you try and get up to a really high tension with something like that, it's not going to work and it's probably going to snap the string anyway. So if you're going to be playing like really low tunings, a longer scale length is always good. And there are some guitars that have even shorter scale lengths than like a normal like Gibson or Fender stuff, but I don't really deal too much with that. So I mean, that's more or less what I have to say about guitar. I mean, there is a lot to learn about it, and there's a lot to know. You're going to want to make sure your electronics match up well with it. I mean, there's a lot to know with pots and capacitors, stuff like that, where say you just put in a new humbucker in a Strat, and before it was all single coils, you're going to want to upgrade the pot, because a single coil will probably 9.9 out of 10 times is going to use a 250K pot, and any normal humbucker is going to use a 500K. Some will even go higher to maybe like 1000K, and basically it's going to change the tone of that pickup, because I'll be honest, I don't know too much about it, but it does affect the sound. If you put a lot of people, when they get like a Gibson or something, sometimes Gibson will use like 300K pots, and they like to upgrade them to 500 because it makes the sound a little brighter, a little more open, not as muddy. So I mean, that's another thing to think about. Capacitors, if you're curious, are connected between a volume knob and a tone knob to pretty much it's to be able to adjust that tone with the tone knob. So I mean, there's definitely a few different types of tone capacitors and stuff out there to learn about. Okay, so I know I said that's pretty much it for guitar, but yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about guitar. It's just definitely do your research and don't worry too much about like a full package guitar. I mean, worry about like what guitar you think is going to be the most comfortable for you, which one you like the feel of the most. I mean, that's a big thing. and then worry about the way that it sounds after, if you're able to do that. I mean, there's plenty of good guitars out there that are just like the perfect package for you right off the bat, but not everyone. So, and then worry about the strings and the picks you use or whatever after, if you don't already have that in mind. So then it pretty much comes down to the amp, and when it comes to amps, there's so much to know. I mean, don't just go out there and say, oh, my favorite musician plays this, so I should play this, because I'm going to tell you right now, it's not that simple. I mean, I can honestly say I like Mesa Boogie a lot, and I was turned on to that because of Tom DeLonge, but Mesa Boogie can do a lot of stuff, and I always knew that, because there's definitely a lot of people out there that play Mesa Boogie. A really good example, I love 4 Year Strong, and they all use orange amps. I tried orange, and granted there's a lot of different amps in their line, but I did not like the one that I got, because, and as much as I thought it was going to be for me, through all like the demos and stuff that I watched, it just wasn't for me. That's just how it is. So definitely do your research when it comes to if you're getting ready to get like a new amp head or a combo amp or whatever, because it really will pay off. Another thing is the tubes that are in it are definitely going to affect the way it sounds. I recently just changed tubes in my PV5150, and you know, it definitely does make a difference, like what type of tubes are in it. I mean, some tubes will say that they're better for like rock, some will say that they're more tuned to like metal, some will say that they're really good for like bluesy stuff. But I mean, it doesn't matter 100%, but it can make that subtle difference that you're really looking for. And there's a lot of really great websites out there that will help you figure out like what kind of tubes you're looking for. Another thing, for the most part, cabs, just the brand of the cab doesn't matter. It just fucking doesn't. I mean, you can argue that a Mesa cab is going to be better than an orange cab or whatever, but the only thing that's different between, say, this orange cab and another like Mesa 2x12 cab is this one, I'm pretty positive, it's just a little bit bigger in dimension, which is supposed to give it a little more low end and just have a little bit more power to it. I mean, it's really not that not super noticeable. But what does matter when it comes to cabs are the speakers in it. And that's the same thing what I'm saying with the Mesa and this orange. For the most part, they come with the same speakers. And don't just get a cab just because it's got like the orange name on it or it's got the Mesa Boogie name on it. It really doesn't matter. If you get, you could use a fucking cardboard box if you really wanted to and just hook up some nice speakers. I mean, I don't really recommend that. But if you get the right speakers, it's going to really help. There's a lot of websites out there that will tell you about different types of speakers, like Celestion speakers and stuff like that. And there's much cheaper ways of going about getting the cab that you want. And you could also mix speakers. So like, you could put vintage 30s, which are what are in here. Say you wanted to get a 4x12, you could put two vintage 30s and then 2 other types of speakers, which would make it like a more full sound, because certain speakers are going to be good for certain types of sounds. Like some will have like really nice low end, and then others will be like really good for like high end, stuff like that, and being able to mix them is really good. So it's another really important thing that you want to think about when it comes to your amps. So yeah, so don't really be like, oh man, he's got an orange cab, or this guy's got a Mesa Boogie cab, that thing must sound amazing, because the right amp, I mean, you could find like the best amp head, say, that you've ever played, but it's going to sound different depending on the cab if there's different speakers in it. I'm not saying two different brand cabs with the same speakers are going to sound identical. I mean, but they're going to be pretty close. And for example, I had my 5150 head playing through this amp, and it doesn't sound as good as it does with the 5150 cab, and that's more or less because of the speakers in it. It's definitely a different type of speaker in it, and it's more suited to that. When it was played through this, I mean, it sounded fine, but I mean, it definitely wasn't what I was looking for. And when I was playing it through this other cab that I had just been borrowing at the time, it sounded awesome through that. So I mean, every little change makes a big difference, and that's something I just can't express enough. I mean, there's so many different little things that there really are to know. So I hope this helped. I know I've been rambling for like 25 minutes or something right now, so if you're still listening to this, then you deserve a cookie. I'm not going to give you a cookie, but you deserve one, so go buy one or something, I guess. But if you do have any questions or anything, you know, I definitely try my best to answer everybody. I mean, sometimes I can't answer everything, but I'm always here to try and help everybody if I can. You know, some things I just don't know. I mean, I get a lot of questions about, oh, what do you think of this amp? I've only played so many amps. I've only played so many guitars. Definitely go on different websites like Musician's Friend, Music123, Sweetwater.com, anything like that, where they have a lot of music reviews, or not music reviews, but like instrument reviews and amp reviews. Go on YouTube. I mean, there's so many people that make so many great gear reviews these days that I feel like make purchasing a hell of a lot easier. So that's pretty much all I really have to say. Just think about the things that you think might be the reason why that your sound isn't the way that it is, or the way that you want it to be. Because I mean, there's definitely a lot of little things that it could be. So anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling before I just start saying all the same shit I've been saying this whole time. And basically, yeah, if you got any questions, feel free to ask either on the YouTube page or the Facebook page. I'll try to help you guys out if you have any problems. And one last thing, people will ask me about the settings on my amp every single day, and I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter what my settings are. It doesn't matter what pedals I'm using. Half the time I'm not even using any pedals. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using pedals, but that's besides the point. If you find the right amp, the right guitar, whatever, you're going to get a good sound if you've really found the one that you're looking for. And my amp settings, if you're not using the same amp, my amp settings just aren't going to help you. You're going to have to really spend a lot of time thinking and playing around with your setup to try and figure it out for yourself, and try and figure out what it is you're exactly trying to get. So I mean, it's as simple as that. So that's all I got. See you later.